Peace, 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 peace. It is your sister Roo, MaWu Lisa Temple, beautiful upstate New York, Hudson Valley. Welcome to UnRead Book Review with Nick and Roo. We are happy to be here giving you episode 47. That's right, 47. You know it's some math in there. Nick can tell you all about that. But until then, y'all, welcome. If this is your first time, welcome here. If you are coming back, welcome back. Thank you for coming back. We appreciate you. UnRead Book Review is where we share our books with you. New, unread, read, reread, brand new off the presses. We share all of our books with you. And we always talk a little bit about what brought us to the book and what we think you might be able to get from the book. So we are here today to give you this episode. And of course, as always, we got hot fire to bring to you. It's not a surprise week, so we know what we're giving each other. So it's just a surprise for you guys. So sit back, pen and paper, get ready to get some great information, and of course, be entertained. But until we get started, hey, let's first find out, how are you doing, Nick? You are out of school, so I know you are outside, and I am loving that for you. So please tell us, how's your week been? Being able to get up when you feel like it and all that other good stuff. How's it going?
We're getting up when I feel like it. That's the best part of it. But it definitely is. But being outside, that's been on and off. Outside partially being inside by choice and by circumstance, a combination of weather, a combination of health, a combination of finances will limit the amount of outside time for sure. But I did get a little bit of outside time in. But this past week, I've definitely spent the majority of it indoors, recovering from a head cold. But I'm at the tail end of it, so I'm happy about that. It's almost gone and out of the way. Few sniffles here and there, but like I said, those are almost gone. So I'm definitely happy about that. And yes, there's some math in all of these episodes because all these episodes are numbered. And episode 47, 4 and 7 is 11. 1 plus 1 is 2. That number 2 for just the two of us. And you, of course, that's out there in the audience. But the number 2 for our community. This isn't just a podcast or a YouTube show. This is the UnRead Book Review community where we commune together to discuss our favorite books and to introduce you to new books, new authors that you can partake in and enjoy yourself. So I'm glad to be back. It's always a great time hanging out with you all, doing what we love to do, and that's talking about books.
Absolutely. And you know, I will tell you, I can remember, I remember as a young person being like, oh, I can't wait until summertime. And summertime would come and then it'd be over. And you think when you get to be an adult, summertime is going to be fun. But you know what? It just be over. Because like you said, so many things limit your opportunities to be able to dive into exactly what it is you like. So UnRead, this is the one space that we have where we get to do something that is completely free and, you know what I'm saying, and lots of fun. And you know what? I tell you, it does fill you and make you wealthy with information, knowledge, interest, make you interesting. You know, I tell people like this, you want to be interested in me, tell me the last book that you read, and we'll have a great time. With that being said, like I said, we got 2 bangers. Now, usually I'll tell Nick to go first, you know, or he'll tell me to go first. I don't know what we're going to do today. So we both have some really good books. So, and the fact that we know what we have, it's like, who do we go first? But Nick, I'll let you choose. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first. I'll go first. Yeah, I'll get mine out of the way. Mine will be short and sweet, you know.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'll warm up the stage for you because my book is good, but your book, your book is very interesting.
Well, I
to say the
stepped out. I
least.
stepped out the box a little bit this week.
Yeah,
I'm trusting people this week. I'm trusting people.
yeah. So I'll go ahead and go first, and get mine down and warm it up for you. So my
Let's
offering,
get-
this week for this episode 47. Where's my banner? Yeah, here it is. My offering for this week is The Wisdom of Gandhi, compiled by Trudy S. Settel. And this is a read, unread. I read it several years ago, over 10 years ago, over a decade ago. And my reason for choosing this book, I guess I just went with the intuition. I was scanning this shelf back here and I just pulled it off like, hey, I haven't looked at this book in a long time. And I put it over to the side and I continue looking at other books. And I'm like, I just pulled a book off the shelf. Why am I still looking for other books? so I'm like, all right, I'll just go with this one. Now, I came across this book. Now, the story of how I came across this book, now that is a bit fuzzy. This could have been a book that I found. Well, one thing I know for sure is that I did not circulate any money for this book. I'm pretty sure I didn't circulate any money. I didn't buy this book. This was a book that I either found or it was given to me. I either found it at one of my old schools, previous schools that I worked at, or maybe it was that's most likely. I think that was it. But like I said, it's pretty fuzzy, but it's been a long time. It's been over a decade. We're talking about maybe like 2014, 2015, around that time when I first got this book and read it. So quite some time ago. But I think this is a good book to revisit because it is a wisdom book. And we can all use some wisdom. You can't go wrong with wisdom. And the beautiful thing about wisdom is that wise words are universal. They can apply to you regardless of your age, ethnicity, background, nationality, where you're from, your religion, your creed. Wisdom transcends all of those parts of identity, and it is universal. And so Gandhi is a well-known figure in history. Mahatma Gandhi, known as a civil rights leader, activist during the colonial rule of India by the British. He was a freedom fighter and led a campaign that ultimately led to India's independence. Complicated individual because he is revered as a freedom fighter. Do I hear that clicking sound again from last time? No, where is that coming from? Why it only happens when we're talking about books? But I guess we'll work through it. I from what I heard from the audience a couple weeks ago, the playback was fine, so I'll just go ahead, even though it's annoying me. I'll try to ignore it. but anyway, yes, Gandhi is a complicated figure as he is revered as a freedom fighter, but he's also said some very racist things about the Black South Africans or Black South Africans or Black I think it was Black South Africans. He said some very Black Africans in South Africa. Yeah, I was right. Yeah, so that he's said and written about those groups of people. So very complicated figure and complicated legacy. But like I said, the wisdom is universal. So I'll tell you about the book, the description of the book, the year it was published, about the author, where it was published, the company that published it, and then we'll get into some of the wisdom. So on the back here, it says the Philosophical Library presents the most influential works throughout the ages, the wisdom of Gandhi. Ending British rule over India without striking a single blow, Mahatma Gandhi was revered as both a saint and a master politician in his native country. His embrace of his own convictions, the personal philosophy that combined both Thoreau's doctrine of civil disobedience and many Hindu beliefs, is an inspiring example of the strength of the human spirit. Drawn entirely from Gandhi's words, this collection is a comprehensive introduction to one of the modern world's most innovative thinkers. So this book was published in 1995 by Citadel Press, and Citadel Press books are published by Kensington Publishing Corporation, located in New York City. And it was compiled by Trudy Settel. Let me see if there's any information about the author in here. I don't think there is any information about the author, but we do have her other works. So she's also published The Light in the Rock, The Vision of Dag Hammarskjöld, The Wisdom of JFK, The Faith of JFK, The Faith of Billy Graham, The Quotable Harry S. Truman, and Close to Home Auto Tours. So those are the other books that she's published. And the book opens up with an introduction, and it's separated by theme. So each chapter represents a theme of Gandhi's writings or speeches. So you have the sutras, means and ends, the way of nonviolence, self-discipline, international peace, democracy, health. So those are the major sections, and it closes out with a glossary and a bibliography. And I marked 6 quotes or 6 pieces of wisdom, and those would be the 6 that I share. And these are wisdom things that I marked back when I read this book over a decade ago. So these aren't pages that I marked to prepare for this broadcast. These are pages that I marked back when I first read it, and I figured maybe these are noteworthy quotes and wisdom that I should revisit and reflect on and apply to my own living, and maybe even reread the entire book, because I'm older now. Maybe there's some wisdom in here that might stand out to me that didn't catch my attention previously. So I think this might be worth rereading, just for the wisdom, separating the wisdom from the messenger, separating the message from the messenger. So the first one that I marked, and this one comes from, and I should probably tell you which chapter it comes from. So this comes from the sutras. And this one says, accumulation of wealth is accumulation of sin. Always and everywhere, worship God in the poor, honor the plowman, and also the scavenger. Art does not shine by its external form alone. And that's and I think that's very noteworthy. And I don't think that's to say that you should not accumulate wealth, because wealth opens up opportunities for you, and also wealth provides a living for you. But I think it's a cautionary wisdom against materialism and greed.
Right.
And then worshiping God in the poor and honoring the plowman and also the scavenger. That in the present translation, you hear, and I might be paraphrasing, the adage to treat the same respect of the CEO that you do with the custodian. Treating everyone with respect, regardless of their position, because we're all humans and we all deserve respect. And art does not shine by external form alone. Often art is the final product. It's what you see on the surface, right? But art comes from a place. Sometimes art can come from a place of light. Sometimes art can come from a place of darkness. And there's a journey that comes from creating art. So it's important that we acknowledge where the art came from and not just the final product. Got to learn the process and not just the final product. And the next one I marked is right on the next page. So this also comes from the sutras. The mere knowledge of words and their meanings is no education. The body is only the means by which the soul manifests itself. When cooperation involves sin, non-cooperation becomes the highest duty. So the mere knowledge of words and their meanings is no education. So that speaks to acquiring a bunch of information and being able to repeat or regurgitate facts and regurgitate words and definitions without any application. So education isn't just learning the information, it's being able to use and apply the information. And the body is the external shell. The soul is what's internal. When the body passes on and the body decays, the soul lives on. Remember, the soul is energy. Energy can't be destroyed. It only transfers from one place to another. And when cooperation involves sin, non-cooperation becomes the highest duty. So cooperation means you're going along with something. And when you're going along with something that's evil or wrong, you're participating in sin. So there is a quote, and this also might be from Gandhi, or it might be from another civil rights or freedom fighter, but it deals with breaking of unjust laws, right? Yes. That's what you think about with cooperation involving sin. Non-cooperation becomes the highest duty. Breaking the rules or breaking the law when the law is unjust or when something is wrong. So next we'll go to the third one, and this is on page 26. So I believe this is also from the sutras. Yes, this is also from the sutras. And it says, a coward is less than a man. He does not deserve to be a member of a society of men and women. It is the law of love that rules mankind, and those who agree that racial inequality must be removed and yet do nothing to fight the evil are impotent. And that last one, that sounds especially relevant to the history of this country, the United States, and especially the civil rights movement and the Jim Crow era. And that addresses the lip service, right? The people who talk about civil rights and talk about racial inequality, but they don't back up the words. They don't put the money where the mouth is or the actions behind the words. So it does us no good if you're just talking and not backing it up with any action. And the law of love it is the law of love that rules mankind. That goes back to the lessons where it says love is the highest vibration of human understanding. Love is a vibration, and not only is it the vibration, but it's the highest vibration. It's the theme in all of the TV shows and movies, whether it's a comedy, whether it's a romance, or whether it's an action movie. It seems that love overpowers everything. It's the love that Bruce Willis is saving the world on Christmas Eve and Die Hard. A coward is less than a man. He does not deserve to be a member of society of men and women. Cowards die 1,000 deaths, they say. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it pushing to page 39. Now, page 39, we're getting into the next chapter, which is men, means, and ends. And it says, honest differences are often a healthy sign of progress. And wow, our honest differences are often a healthy sign of progress. And I would add on to that, acknowledging those differences and discussing those differences and still being able to be cordial and get along and unify despite those differences is an indication of progress. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. I feel like that one is self-explanatory right there.
Talk that. Talk that.
Mm-hmm. All crime is a kind of disease and should be treated as such. And that's interesting because with the use of the word disease, because I think of how everything is holistic, right? How physical manifestations often result from some type of illness from within someone, for the person that's committing those atrocities. So some type of mental illness is going on, some type of mental illness and disease, some type of trauma or pain that has never been healed is resulting in someone committing a crime.
Knowingly and unknowingly.
Knowingly and unknowingly, exactly. So now we're going to go to page 61. 61 is the way of nonviolence. That comes from the chapter of the way of nonviolence. It is the acid test of nonviolence that in a nonviolent conflict, there is no rancor left behind, and in the end, the enemies are converted into friends. Truth implies love, and firmness engenders and therefore serves as a synonym for force. I thus began to call the Indian movement Satyagraha, that is to say, the force which is born of truth in love or nonviolence. The acid test of nonviolence, that in the nonviolent conflict, there is no rancor left behind, and in the end, the enemies are converted into friends. So yeah, that's powerful there. Thinking about the use of nonviolence resulting in enemies becoming friends, especially when the enemy has exercised violence towards you. Now, you could get into your discussion, or you could get into your discourse about whether violence or nonviolence, which one is more effective. We've seen the benefits of both, and we've seen the pitfalls of both. But to see that actually play out and be effective speaks volumes, and that's very powerful. And the second half of this wisdom about truth and love and firmness, that speaks to the balance between love and the balance between firmness. Love isn't weak. Love doesn't mean you allow someone to take advantage of you and someone to step over you, and you allow yourself to be a rug. Love is compassion, but love isn't weak. Love is still firm. Love is still a force. And page 63, also from the Way of Nonviolence. Nonviolence in this dynamic condition means conscious suffering. It does not mean meek submission to the will of the evildoer, but it means the pitting of one's soul against the will of the tyrant. So that's very similar to the one I just shared, meaning that nonviolence, it's similar to love. It's not weak and it's not passive, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're allowing someone to take advantage of you, but using the soul. Speaking to my last offering in the previous episode with the law of resonance, the power of that heart space and that energy, the power of that small group of people meditating, affecting a larger, a group of a few hundred people meditating, affecting the energy in the lives of 86,000 people. That's what we're talking about here. The force of nonviolence is infinitely more wonderful and subtle than the material forces of nature, like electricity. And again, I think that speaks to the same thing, but I don't see those as separate, because we are electric beings.
The power electromagnetic beings.
Yeah, electromagnetic beings, exactly. So we have that power of electricity that we see in the material forces in the world. That exists within us. And I'll go to the last piece of wisdom here. And this comes from the very last section, which is health. This comes from the section of health. And it says, you will eat not to satisfy your palate, but your hunger. A self-indulgent man lives to eat. A self-restrained man eats to live. And that speaks to Elijah Muhammad eating to live. Now, that is not to say that you shouldn't enjoy your food. Yeah, you should make your food delicious. You should try delicious food. But I think this speaks more to the overdoing of it, the overindulgence of it. That's one of those deadly sins. What was that one called? When you overindulge in
gluttony.
Gluttony, there you go. Thank you. Yes, that speaks to gluttony there. And it also speaks to the self-discipline that comes with it too. You need self-discipline in order to not become greedy and gluttonous. And in turn, that produces good health for you, good physical health, as well as good mental and spiritual health too, since health is holistic. So this book, that's the last piece of wisdom that I'll share from this book. This book is, got to share the page count. It's a little over 150 pages, and it's all, like I said, it's all wisdom, all short, digestible quotes of wisdom, categorized by theme. So this is my offering for this episode 47 of UnRead, The Wisdom of Gandhi, compiled by Trudy S. Settel.
I love it. I love the cover. First of all, I love those colors. And I love talking about Gandhi. I remember years ago having a really difficult time. And we talking like 20 years ago, like having a difficult time really accepting some of the things that he did, just when when you find out some of the other things that he thought about and some of his standing and some of his thoughts on certain things. So it's very it makes you very what is the word I'm looking for? It makes you very it makes you question sometimes not just him, but as people who are activists for certain things or stand on certain principles, values, and things like that, does it apply everywhere versus where it benefits you? Because it's no secret that the relations between Indians and Africans and African Americans has been one that's been talked about, just like peoples from anywhere else that are brown. But the fact that he did such extreme sacrifice and things, his hunger strikes and all these different things like that, knowing that he did these extreme things, and it had to do with the way they were being treated and the way other people were being treated, and knowing that he also low-key was racist. You know what I mean? It's like low-key, high-key. Like, do we talk about it? Do we not? But it wouldn't be the first time it was seen. We've seen, even in some of the work that we covered before, during slavery, Jim Crow era, all these different places where you had these abolitionists who vehemently hated slavery. However, they supported it on the surface because it supported the cause or the business or the whatever, the politics that they were a part of. So this work with him, I think that would always be like, it wouldn't besmirch his work, obviously, but it just makes you look at it differently. You know what I mean? It makes you ask so many questions. Like, for example, when he looked at himself and he looked at you or I, what did he see?
Right.
Did he see the same people, or was he really did he really not see it like that? I don't think it's talked about enough, and if it is, I haven't done enough research on it to be able to say. But it's just it's just a lot. It's a lot. And I love the fact that you mentioned those parts of wisdom, and it talked about the nonviolent approach, and we talked about how nonviolence has worked for us and not worked for us. How it has its benefits and not. And I don't always see, and I'm only one person with this many eyes. But you don't always see the people become your allies after.
Right.
And if they are, can they be trusted? To not harm you again, or does it matter? Because I think sometimes that's what lesson is being taught with nonviolence as well, is I'm not being nonviolent because it's going to make you nonviolent. I'm being nonviolent because I'm nonviolent.
Right.
And you know what I mean? So I'm not going to respond to you in kind. I'm going to allow you to respond how you do. But it is my hopes that you'll treat me like I'm treating you. So, I mean, those are just some of my initial things. And, I'd be interested really And I haven't studied Gandhi's work again for like 20 something years, you know. I would be interested to know what other non-violent or pro-brown folk, pro-melanated folk thought about him then and now, in terms of that particular aspect of his movement. And again, I never ever want to take away from the fact that, you know, people do great things and they are still human. You know what I mean? They still have, you know, flaws like everyone else. So I definitely don't want this to come off as none of his work mattered because he felt away. You know, what I'm just saying is I'm wondering how deep was that work really able to go if you couldn't see the same between somebody that looked like me and looked like, you know, we look alike. You know, like I even ask that question now. You know, you go into places and you see people, you know, from other places who look like you, who are darker than you sometimes, and they treat you worse than the Caucasian does. And you ask yourself, you know, about self-hate. You ask yourself about all these different things because it's no way you can look at me and not see yourself. And if it is, we all need to go to the eye doctor.
Right.
You know, the spiritual eye doctor, because again, you talked about the soul even, you know, in that part of it. So it's, you know, I don't know. He always left me with a lot of questions. He always did, always did, always did. And I'm not going to pretend that I don't have some of those same questions even today.
Right. Yeah. Rightfully so too. Rightfully so. And you know, and it's very easy for people to go to Martin Luther King Jr., but same thing. very complicated legacy, you know, and you can ask some of the same questions that you asked and wonder about Dr. King, maybe not so much on the racial side, but just with some of the things that we heard about his philosophies and his personal life. You can ask the same thing, you know, about him. So yeah, those are great questions there.
And you know, I mean, again, we are just regular folk. You know, yes, some of us have extraordinary purposes, you know, and things to do, you know, but at the end of the day, in a way, I kind of think that makes for a stronger argument sometimes, because yeah, my personal life, I know I'm not ABCD, you know, or whatever, but I know right from wrong and I'm promoting right. And sometimes it's hard to promote right when you're doing wrong, you know. So people like, well, you know, what you say and do this, but you're doing this counterproductive and counter to what it is you say you're doing. I mean, but show me show me a handful really of people who weren't great, who moved greatness across the board or changed things, that didn't have something personal somebody could find. We good. If somebody search right now, they can find something about you. I know they find something about me, and I got more interesting stories than they do. So if they ask me, I tell them some good stories. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's
we ain't trying to hide it. We're gonna put it out there for y'all. Like,
exactly,
look.
exactly. You know what? I remember, you know, some of the most uncomfortable conversations, you know, I found when we were studying unmasking morality, you know, about values and principles and the way we see things and what's acceptable, what's not, what is good treatment, what is poor treatment, who deserves good treatment and poor treatment, who decides. So, there was a lot going on. And again, we have to remember, those were different times. We're sitting here on the internet. You're where you are. I'm where I am. We can do like 9,000 things on our computer. We can do it on our phone. We don't have to be nowhere near each other. We can set up a whole movement. We could have the movement do what it do, dissolve the movement. Like it's so many things that were different then, and information moves slow. Somebody's writing a book, it wouldn't get to somebody right away. They have to write a book, the manuscript, and send it, and it has to be looked at and edited and sent back, and this and that, and maybe accepted, maybe rejected, and again, all this is going on while real life is still happening. You know what I mean? So in the midst of his sacrifice, getting his word out there, much like Malcolm and Martin and many of the others, people take from it what they do and they run with that. They run with a narrative or a part of all the work that you do. So again, like I said, I don't ever want it to sound like I don't appreciate his sacrifice and things like that, but there's a lot about his story that is just still unknown, and again, a lot of it is attributed to just being human.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's the challenge with being in a leadership positions, such as that, because just you said a few moments ago that someone can go and find information about you and I, but you and I, we're not telling people to follow us. we're not leading nobody nowhere. I don't want to lead nobody nowhere.
Hey, talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it.
But yeah, but that was well put, and I think it definitely deserves examination for sure. Both sides of it. The work, what was accomplished, the wisdom, and also who the person was. We should always look at things holistically from all angles. So yeah. That is my offering. So I think I warmed it up.
I just want to add a little bit more, if I may. It's running through my mind because, like I said, I always thought he was a fascinating man. Of course, as an Aquarian humanitarian, I'm always fascinated with the saints, with the people who do great things in the name of the people, in the name of humanity. So I'm always looking at those people because they are examples for me. I, like you said, we're not trying to get anyone to follow us, but I like to think if someone was to mention me, they would know that, my work as a humanitarian is separate from some of the nonsense I may have done in my foolish life. You know what I'm saying? So I speak to that. But what I was going to say is that taking a look at his, just like many other great humanitarians and writers, taking their information and re-examining it now, like we do in UnRead, gives us an opportunity again to go back and look at it with a different level of maturity, a different level of experience, things like that. One of the things that I think is important is you talked about separating the message from the messenger. You know what I mean? And I think that's always, is the message good, but then they say, well, does it come from a worthy source? In Islam, certain things won't even be accepted if it doesn't come out the mouths of certain people or off the lineage of a certain people. So separating the message and the messenger can still be tricky as well. But I think as we learn to use our judgment and discernment, we're able to take that information regardless of the messenger and take with it, as they say, eat the meat and leave the bones. You know what I mean? And that's all we do as well. So yes, I think it was a great offering, and definitely one that should always stay on your shelf and be reread often, especially when you look at humanity today. I mean, we go through this every year, Nick. We do our human rights in December, and then we do unmasking morality all, winter. We have touched a lot of the things that these humanitarians and great people have sacrificed for.
Yes, yes. Well said. Well said. So
It's my turn.
oh, come on. It's well overdue for your turn.
Hey, okay. So look, first of all, again, welcome everyone. If this is your first time here, welcome. If this is you coming back, welcome back. We must be doing something right. We are always glad to have you here. Please don't forget that you can submit your books, the ones you have on your shelf that are read, unread. You can always submit your writings, and you can recommend others. We love to talk about books here. Nothing, no subject is off the table. We like to discuss what we got on our shelves, and our shelves have a variety. And I think my offering today is definitely a testament to that. I don't think it'll surprise anyone that this book was on my shelf, but I think it would surprise some that I'm sharing it. And it's one of those books that, we talked about this before. We have so many books that when we get ready to share, sometimes we like, no, did I share this one? Should I share this one? This a little far out there. And I asked myself, what made me feel that way? Like, I got all these books on my shelf. Am I ashamed of any of these books? Do I not want people to know some of the stuff I'm reading? Like, I asked myself that years ago when I would work on putting together interesting talks in the community. You always want to bring something interesting and add something to someone's plate. And again, like you said, information is not knowledge now. You know what I'm saying? It's just information. It's what you do with it, what you apply it with. And this book is a perfect example of application with good intention. We gonna put it like that. And my offering this week is by William W. Hewitt, and it is Hypnosis for Beginners. Hypnosis for Beginners. Now, I'm sure that nobody is surprised I have a book like this on my shelf. Here's the author on the back. Okay. I'm surprised nobody, I'm quite sure nobody is surprised I have a book like this on my shelf. But let me tell you about this book. So, I've always been a skeptical person. I grew up with a Leo mom. Shout out to mommy. Leo season is coming. Miss you, mama. But my mom was a comedian, and whenever it was something that was outside of her depth or something that she didn't really know, she would say, well, I'm from Missouri, and that's the show me state. You're going to have to show me. And one of the things I never wanted nobody to show me was hypnosis. It made me weird. I was like, wait a minute. So somebody can take you and program you and not realize that we've been programmed all along, So the lack of knowledge with knowledge, you be confused sometimes, right? Now, Nick, I know you had a personal experience with hypnosis, so we're going to get to that, but I want to finish with this book. I want to get to this book. So this book here, like I said, is written by William W. Hewitt, and I came across this book like I have with many of my others in that search for a better me, a better Roo, a deeper Roo, a healed Roo, all of that good stuff like that. So this book was first written in 1986 with several printings after. The one I have here is a fifth printing, and that's 2002. And what I tell people is that this is one of those books where I got it, I went through it, and I laid it down. And for different reasons. So how did I come across the book? Um Anybody who's done any work with MaWu Lisa Temple before, done any work with me, knows that I came across a book about almost 20 years ago called Journey of the Souls, Dr. Michael P. Newton, and it changed my life. It changed my life not because it was something in there that I had never heard so much, as much as the information hit different. You know, it comes a point, I think, in people's journey where, and again, this is why we go back to our books. I think sometimes when you read something, it just goes, you know, over your head, in one ear out the other, just like, you know, the wisdom of Umi and father and grandmother. Sometimes, you know, they can tell us something and we be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And 20 years later, we be like, oh, wow, they were right, you know. So I think, you know, with a lot of things that I pick up, even when I don't understand it or I feel like I'm not ready for it, one thing I've been really good at is saying to myself, I'm going to put this down so I think I'm ready for this thing. And when I was reading Dr. Newton's book, one of the things that became very clear is that even though everyone can um, uh, do hypnosis and receive hypnosis, for some people it's easy, for some people it's hard. Some people say they can't be hypnotized. I'm not here to argue that. That's between you and yourself. But what I will say is that he did mention people with certain kind of traumas that needed a little more assistance with something like hypnosis or past life regression, etc., because the traumas were severe, and that if you experience some of these things sometimes with a professional who's not familiar with those things, it can cause more damage in the waking life than good. Okay. So for me, you know, I don't make it any secrets. You know, I had a very interesting childhood and interesting foundation. One that makes me one of those people who need to be more cautious when dealing with hypnosis. So when I got this book, the reason I got it was because in Dr. Newton's book, he did talk about self-hypnosis versus going to someone and opening yourself and opening your vessel to someone to come in and you know, help guide you along the way. Now, as a yoga instructor, as a mindfulness coach, as a life coach, even in nursing, we have done guided meditations where we tell people, you know, imagine yourself laying on the beach and you feel the wind, and this is a form of self-talk, self-hypnosis that people use to calm themselves, etc., etc. But before I go further there, let's talk a little bit more about the book. So Mr. Hewitt has other books. One's called Hypnosis, just hypnosis, tea leaf reading, astrology for beginners, bridges to success and fulfillment, the art of self-talk, psychic development for beginners, self-hypnosis for a better life. He also has something that we don't even, a lot of people don't use no more. I still do. He has audio tapes. So those are cassette tapes for you people who want to know what they are. I should have had one to show you. This is a cassette tape. Uh, but the audio tapes that he has is Become Smoke Free through Self Hypnosis, Psychic Workout through Self Hypnosis, Relaxation and Stress Management through Self Hypnosis, and Your Perfect Weight through Self Hypnosis. Now, one of the things I like to mention is that if you notice, there were these cessation, the audio tapes were about changing the thing inside you. Um, a lot of people who experimented with hypnosis early on in the early stages dealt with it for these reasons, things like weight loss, to stop smoking, to stop drinking, and other things, I'm sure. But weight loss and smoking were the major two that saw commercial success and allowed it to be digested more commercially. Okay, because again, people just were just like me, very, very skeptical. Is this even real? Is it play acting? 1, 2, 3, you're asleep. It's like, yeah, right. But no, it does happen like that. It can happen like that. So let me tell you about the author, which, for me, his background is very interesting. He's almost like L. Ron Hubbard for me, knowing that L. Ron Hubbard did Dianetics, but he was also a sci-fi writer. So it's like, wow, you think about the broad range of what these people were able to write about, and it's almost impossible to think how those things came together until you really sit down and think about the connectiveness of everything. So William W. Hewitt is a freelance writer and the author of 8 books and several hypnosis audio tapes published by Llewellyn. He spent more than 30 years as a professional writer and editor in the computer, nuclear power, and mining industries. He is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and frequently lectures on hypnosis, mind power, self-improvement, metaphysics, and related subjects. This book, when I got it, was $9.95, and I loved it, and I got it. And there's a quote here from Silver Raven Wolf, which is the author of Ride the Silver Broomstick and The Stair to the Magical Cauldron and Angels and Companions to Magic. She says, I've taught students for several years using William Hewitt's exceptional hypnosis techniques. He's easy to understand and simple to implement step-by-step instructions have brought hundreds of readers to great heights in their personal success programs. Hypnosis for Beginners presents a dynamic course for self-improvement and gives you the power to control your life. I can attribute many of my own personal successes to Mr. Hewitt's techniques, and I definitely consider him a genius of our time. So that was the excerpt they have from one of the people who review his book in the back. And I mean, wow, what a testimony, right? So let's talk about the contents here. And I won't be long with this in the way of, going through all the different things, but I thought it was some important parts to point out for the person who may be like, well, do I want to pick up that book? Is that book for me? What I'll say is just take a listen and maybe you'll hear something that is of interest. So it's broken into 15 chapters, 3 parts, 15 chapters. Part 1 is hypnosis and self-hypnosis. Again, I got this book with the intention of using it for myself because of information I had researched, looking into hypnosis, going to someone to actually get some clarity on things and realize that self-hypnosis might be the way for me to go. In chapter 1, it talks about how to be a hypnotherapist. What is hypnosis? It talks about going into business, how to perform hypnosis exercises. Chapter 2, it talks about hypnosis routines and hypnosis, your first session, and what should be talked about that in that session. Basic relaxation and hypnosis routines. And then it goes on. Chapter 3, specific routines for controlling diet and eating habits and teaching self-hypnosis. Chapter 4, routines to reinforce suggestions previously given, the depth of hypnosis. And it just goes on here. It talks about self-image, using vision, using your mind to imagine and envision things. Then in part 2, it talks about what I was talking about, that regression and self-regression. It starts to talk about recording scripts for yourself in order to be able to recall some of the information, etc. And again, you have to remember, when this work was being offered, it was really new. It was out there. For those who believed, they believed it, but for those who didn't, this was just another line of voodoo hoodoo, ya. Those crazy people think that stuff works. They just easily controlled, etc., which is true to some extent, but again, is much more to it than that. Part 3 is practical applications and supplemental information, and I can't express, every chapter of this book is important because they're building blocks. If you skip around, you're gonna miss something, and it's gonna create an incomplete practice that may not yield the best outcome that it could have, because you skip some steps, or there's some vital things that you need to understand about what you're seeing, etc., what you're hearing, what you're doing, what you come out remembering, etc., what you remember while you're there. And people say, well, where are you at? Listen, you're there. So let me just go over these parts in this third part, and then I'll read a couple of passages to you. So practical applications and supplemental information. It says suggestions. It gives you like 10 pages of suggestions. It says suggestions for a variety of purposes, including speaking skills, increasing self-confidence, and improving sexual performance. Chapter 10, other kinds of hypnosis. We are children. I promise you, we are. That's what makes this part funny. Chapter 10, other kinds of hypnosis. Hypnosis for children, group hypnosis, and stage hypnosis. Chapter 11, additional case histories, examples of techniques used for a variety of cases. Chapter 12, it talks a little bit more about visualization. So they have something called the seashore trip routine, the balloon countdown, test taking, migraines, and smoking. Again, it goes back to those self-correction type things. In chapter 13, it deals with more of self-hypnosis, exercises and cases and uses for self-hypnosis. And then 14 and 15 talk about instructions for group situations, habit control, phobias, use with senior citizens and shut-ins, pain control, healing, business situations, spiritual contacts, and other situations and purposes. And in 15, it just talks about entering the realm of psychic experience and summary. So as you can imagine, this book, although it's only 259 pages, right? And that's what the summary is. The summary is just page 258 and 259. This book has a lot of information. When I say this book is one of those little but packed old books, it really is. One of the things I like is not a lot of fluff in here. It's like, this is how you do it. These are the steps. Write them down, memorize them, do them. The more you do it, it's done. Is no, well, first you have to, nah, straight to the point. Straight to the point. He gives you the routines, etc. in here. So let me read to you his thoughts on that. He starts with hypnosis is a lot like daydreaming. When you daydream, you alter your state of consciousness to the alpha frequency region and engage in your fantasies. All the while, you are conscious and aware, and yet you remain oblivious to external distractions. Daydreaming is a perfectly normal, safe, and healthy phenomena that we all engage in from time to time. Now, anybody that's hung out with me know I love doing my mom movies. I love doing my mom movies. I do it when people are talking. I do it when I'm sitting by myself. I do it when I'm watching TV, listening to music, anything. And it's just one of those times where I'll sit and I will close my eyes and I can see what the person is saying. And I've practiced that since I was a little girl, and it's always made reading so much fun for me. Because when I read something, I am actually there. I that's why I'm mindful about what I ingest, you know what I'm saying, visually and audibly, because the simple fact is easy for me to see it. And once you can see it, it's there. You know what I mean? So it says hypnosis is a technique that enables you to achieve this altered state of consciousness, the daydream state, deliberately, and direct your attention to specific goals in order to achieve them. Like daydreaming, hypnosis is a perfectly normal, safe, and healthy phenomena. In hypnosis, daydreaming, you are conscious and aware. You remain oblivious, but both daydreaming and hypnosis, your minds adjust. The difference is that in hypnosis, your mind is directed to a specific beneficial goal which you wish to achieve, and not to the fantasies. Because you know for yourself, when you let in a fantasy unfold, if you've been so fortunate to be able to do some mind work, when you let a fantasy unfold, you don't always know what's going to happen. It's just happening. But when you go in deliberately with self-hypnosis, you are going in with a goal to say, i.e., I am going to stop smoking, I am going to stop eating, I'm going to eat less, I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to whatever the thing is for the beneficial goals. So they have here quitting smoking, dieting, improving the self-image, overcoming phobias and fears. You hear to talk about speaking. For some people, speaking can be polarizing. So they go and they do things like Toastmasters, and other people do things like this. They sit and they talk to themselves. I can speak when I'm in the room. I can do this. And a really simple but and basic example of that is when they tell you, when you're standing on stage, imagine everybody in the audience in a certain way. In this way, it takes your focus off of the nervousness of your mind, allows you to be able to relax. We remember we talked about Waterboy, the movie, and how he saw the coach as the big baby. You know what I'm saying? Something that allows you to be able to realize, I'm in control of this situation. I'm controlling this narrative, and I'm creating this pathway for me to be able to reset goal through talking to myself, self-talk, talk therapy, right? So it says, when you've completed hypnosis for beginners, you will know how to hypnotize others or yourself for any beneficial, worthwhile purpose. Throughout this book, you will find complete word-by-word hypnosis techniques and case examples to illustrate specific points. Nothing is left for you to wonder about. You will even learn how to modify the techniques in the book to develop your own procedures. If you want to learn hypnosis as part of a get-rich scheme or exercise control over others, forget it. It won't work. You will not find these procedures in this book. However, if you want to expand your awareness, reshape and enrich your life or the lives of others, and do so in a spirit of brotherhood and love, then read on. Hypnosis is one of the most valuable tools in the world today for the enrichment of lives. Okay. So I thought that was important that we mention that, because one of the things that I found, even for myself, is and you'll hear from the author himself, he mentions it as well, is the unethical behavior of some people who learn this technique, learn these techniques. So I want to just go to a specific part here, because it's very important that I mention this. Is everybody having fun with this? I know I am. Even just going back into this book made me remember why I brought it out, why I got it in the first place. Where is that part?
Very fascinating.
You know, I can't wait to talk to you, Nick. I can't wait to talk to you. For all of y'all who missed it, Nick got hypnotized. So this I mean, I was so surprised that he went and did it, but I was so glad that he did, so he could tell us about it.
Oh no, I didn't get it. I saw other people.
Well, you saw other people get it. Yeah. Okay, so the author talks about he talks about his experiences, okay? And I ask you to please just bear with me, because all of this is important, because the questions that were being asked then are some of the same questions that I asked now about the ethics and the methods, etc., in shady and unsavory people. So he says, my experiences. This is a short little part in the introduction here. For over 25 years, I've been practicing hypnosis and have hypnotized hundreds of people in almost every conceivable situation. When I first started, I practiced part-time on weekends and in the evenings with no charge to my subjects, enabling me to learn and hone my hypnosis skills. During this time, I earned my living as a technical writer. Because I'm an altruistic person, hypnosis gave me the chance to help others. In 1976, the demands on my time became so great that I decided to go into hypnosis full-time as a business, at which time I charged $25 per session, which was $10 to $25 per session less than other hypnotists. I have a fanatical dislike for greed, gluttony. I have a fanatical dislike for greed, which explains my lower fees. Nonetheless, in spite of high expenses, including rent, advertising, and phone charges, I still did quite well. Then 2 events occurred within a few months of each other that destroyed the hypnosis market in my metropolitan area. 2 hypnotists, one a physician and the other one a psychologist, were indicted on criminal charges in non-related cases. The physician was found guilty of massive and flagrant misuse of hypnosis for personal gain to the detriment of his patients, and his medical license was revoked, but no jail sentence was imposed. In the case of the psychologist, I was the one who filed the initial charges against him with the state attorney general's office. The ensuing investigation revealed that I had only seen the tip of a huge, ugly iceberg, and he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. The media coverage of these 2 cases was massive, and all hypnotists were tarred with the same brush. The result was that it was nearly impossible to earn a dime as a hypnotist for quite some time. I went back to technical writing for a living for a while, practicing hypnosis on the side once again. In 1992, I decided to retire for the most part and devote my time to freelance writing giving occasional workshops on psychic development, and doing occasional hypnosis in special cases, and traveling for pleasure. My purpose for writing this book is to present hypnosis as the honorable, beneficial skill that it is. Whether you practice self hypnosis in the quiet solitude of your room or with a loved one or a friend, the benefits can be enormous. A husband and wife can draw closer in love, harmony, and understanding more than they ever dreamed possible just by practicing hypnosis together for common goals. In self hypnosis, you can draw closer to your higher self, and through that higher self, to connect to all others. There are really no negative aspects of hypnosis. If you approach it with integrity, you reap the beneficial benefits and results. So I just wanted to really read that part word for word because, again, like he says in the beginning of this book, as old as it is, if you are coming into this practice trying to scam or work your way around or control anything or anybody other than yourself, you'll be sad. It's just like with any other aspect of magic. And it takes me to my statement that I made in the beginning about sharing certain books that I have on my shelf. It was very early on in my journey, in my very early 20s, that I realized that we are responsible for the information that we put out into the world. And if we putting something out there that is harmful, it's just like every time it goes wrong, we are swinging the knife. You know what I mean? And so I didn't ever want to be responsible for someone taking something that I shared that was meant for good and use it in a way that was not. When I was raising my children, I always told them, and they will still tell you to this day, one of our sayings in our family is use your power for good and not for evil. And people will say, well, good and evil, two sides. Listen, they know what I meant, and they meant what, and then I meant what I said, and they knew it. And this is, it goes back to the do no harm. You know what I mean? This should be about, like everything else, this should be about self-refinement. This should be about, as it says, working on yourself, making yourself stronger. One of the things that I hadn't thought about before I got this book, that I didn't connect the two, should I say. I had thought about it because I know the mind is the builder, and I knew that we had the ability to heal. But I never thought that you could use hypnosis as a form of pain control and healing. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about how you can program your body to receive pain in a different way, or not at all. And so that kept my attention. And of course, spiritual contacts, being able to connect to your higher self, to your loved ones, things like that, being more in tune with your intuition, etc. Again, this book right here, picking it up and sharing it really reminds me of how desperate I was to know myself, and I think a lot of us come on this path, realizing that we don't know, realizing that we've been lied to, realizing that the people who were raising us still don't even know themselves, let alone us, and yet they set us on this trajectory to be this person that we probably wouldn't be if we knew who we actually were. And in hypnosis is one of those things that allows us to go in and see ourselves as a whole, as we used to be, as we are, and create who we want to be. And it creates a good practice. And I have to say that one of the things that's definitely necessary with this is, like many other things, is discipline and consistency. And I know in my younger days, I was not very consistent and I did not have a lot of discipline. I'm an air sign, with fire all up in there. I'll be all over the place. You know what? My youngest son and daughter said that the thing they use to talk about me is that thing that be in front of the gas stations or the stores that be blowing like this, and it just be like, oh, la, la, la. They said that's who I am. They said mommy be all over, mommy be jiggling, and she got rhythm, but it's her own rhythm. And so when I was young, I was definitely not healed enough. And somebody would say, well, that's the whole idea, is to get healed. You have to experience a certain level of healing to be able to experience a certain level of healing. And that's what I was talking about with the steps. You know what I mean? Because again, this takes focus and discipline. And if you don't have that, if you can't calm yourself enough to be able to sit for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, this is not going to work. But again, one of the things that he implements in here is recording tapes to play for yourself. You know what I mean? And this helps you, in your sleep state, as you walk through the other states of consciousness. This is supposed to be able to help you to get down in there, recognize, assess, and either program or reprogram whatever's going on in the background to help you to be a better person. Because overeating, smoking, all of these different things have ties to them. It's a reason why people overeat. It's the reason why people smoke. It's the reason why people drink. It's the reason why they do drugs, why they're sexually promiscuous, why they like all these things have a root. And again, it's in that foundation. And again, it made me really conscious and aware when he talked about being mindful and taking a special slow and deliberate approach to helping people who have suffered severe traumas, and that's PTSD, CPTSD. These are people who have experienced things that reawakening and going back into these stages without proper preparation can leave you in a greater state of psychosis than helping you. So this is my offering, Hypnosis for Beginners, reaching new levels of awareness and achievement. And what I tell people is, do go into this with the intention of helping yourself. And when you are able to help others, if you're able to help others, if it's nothing more than just sharing the name of the book, remember that this is not about you controlling. This is about you going in and getting to the root of your own issues and creating a better self so you can in turn experience a better life. This world has so many beautiful things to offer, and we miss so much because of the damage that was done to us early on in life, knowingly and unknowingly, from the continual bombardment of the BS that happens in daily life, and the fear mongering and all these other things, the anger, the hatred, all of that, makes it where it's almost impossible to enjoy the beauty in this world. So if you can do that by going in with self-hypnosis and begin to help you see the world and for what it is, you don't want to delude yourself. You don't want to go in and say everything is perfect and I see everything. You don't want to delude yourself. You want to go in and be realistic so you can face life on life's terms, and in turn create the life that you want to see. So Hypnosis for Beginners, William W. Hewitt.
Amazing.
So, I want to ask you your thoughts on this, because you have seen hypnosis live and in person recently, not long ago. I haven't seen it live and in person for some time. I have a friend in Texas who is a master hypnotist, and we talk often about things like, in Unmasking Morality, we talked about, changing people's hatred to love. And is that an acceptable thing to do? What are the ethics of hypnosis? So we talk a lot about that type of thing, but I want to hear a little bit about what you think about this book, and also what your experience was like when you witnessed it in person.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, the book sounds very fascinating. Sounds like one that I would definitely read, that I'm interested in reading, and probably for the self-hypnosis aspects of it, just for my self-healing and both physical health, and just to relax the mind and keep the mind centered and grounded, because it essentially sounds like a form of meditation, or closely related to meditation, or there's some meditation that goes into hypnosis. And it also reminds me of, I believe this is a book that I brought to UnRead back in our early UnRead days. It was The Alchemy of Your Dreams, and the role of intention setting, because there's, from the passages that you read from the Hypnosis for Beginners, there's a portion of the process where you set an intention for what you want to do, and the same thing applies to dreaming, and lucid dreaming specifically is what the book talked about, and how you can exercise control over what you dream about by setting an intention, just as you're drifting off into that sleep state. So there's definitely some parallels in there. But yeah, my experience witnessing hypnosis happened this past December. Last December, I attended a show called High Prov, and High Prov is a combination of two words. It's the combination of hypnosis and improv. So to put it all together, this show, it was an improv under hypnosis show, in which you have an audience. The show was hosted by Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It? And hypnosis, professional hypnosis, Assad Mechi. And the way it worked was, everyone that was at the show, obviously they brought a ticket to the show, and everyone was seated in the audience. And then the host, they called for, I believe it was 20 volunteers. So they called for 20 volunteers from the audience to come to the stage. A bunch of people ran out. I wasn't sure if I wanted to volunteer or not, because I didn't know what kind of stuff I'd be doing. But I mean, it was a bunch of people that wanted to volunteer anyway. So there was like a couple extra people that they had enough people, and they had to go back to the audience. And what's interesting is everything that Roo said about hypnosis, about people not being able to be hypnotized, and also people being able to fall right into hypnosis instantly. That's all true, because that's exactly what happened when I was watching the show. There was maybe like a couple of people, maybe one or two people, that they sent back to the audience, either because it was taking them too long to fall under the hypnosis, or it wasn't working for them, or they didn't relax themselves enough, or whatever the case was. There were a couple of people that were sent back to the audience because, for one reason or another, they didn't fall under hypnosis. And then it was through a process of elimination. They went from 20 people down to about, I think it was down to about 5 people that that were part of the show for the rest of the program. And it was exactly as Roo described. They would be conscious, their normal selves, and then with a snap of the finger, they would fall under hypnosis. And and if you know how improv works, nothing is scripted. They're taking ideas from the audience. So the audience is throwing out the scenarios. So I remember one of the scenarios, it was like a Star Trek kind of theme where they were in space, and there were these astronauts who were flying to this planet, I guess, to colonize this planet. And then when they got there, they were fighting against the aliens, but they were fighting with plungers. So the people are acting out all of this. People are acting out all of this. Also, there was a scenario where there was some type of lost object. They were looking for something. I can't remember what they were looking for, but it was like a weird object. Like it was their nose. I think that's what they were looking for. They were looking for their nose. So they had them there. So people were like crawling around the stage, looking under the chairs. There were people, they were interviewing people and acting them how to telling them how they should act, what kind of temperament they should have. And people were acting everything out to a T, So, and I really thought they were under hypnosis. I didn't think it was scripted. I didn't think they pre-selected the people to get up there and pre-selected them as actors. I think it was truly hypnosis. So that was a very entertaining, to say the least, but just very fascinating of how fast people were able to fall under hypnosis. And even me sitting in the audience, even though I didn't fall under the hypnosis, I did, because there was some breathing and there was some frequencies being played too. So I did got into a meditative state myself, but I didn't quite get into hypnosis since I wasn't on stage and I wasn't like facing the hypnotist. So they were on stage and they were facing the hypnotist while the audience was back in the audience. So yeah, I definitely think it's real. I definitely think it can be used for healing. It can be used to improve one's life, and it's something that I want to look more into. I'm also familiar with using hypnosis for past life regressions. I actually came across a couple of people that do that. I know a friend of a friend that does it. Past life regressions. So yeah, and I know people have used it for people who've claimed to be abductees. They go on the past life regression to remember their abductions. I remember the Hill family, the Barney and I forgot the Barney and Betty Hill, the couple that got abducted. They went under past life regression. I remember watching their movie, a documentary about that. So yeah, it's all very interesting. But I definitely think it's valid,
Absolutely. It's interesting that you said that about the abductees and things like that. For those same reason, like that type of scenario right there is part of what the explanation is. And some of Dr. New is more clinical work that talks about working with people who have experienced things that they can't remember. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes remembering these things trigger other things, obviously, anxiety, etc. You know what I mean? Just the idea of knowing that without ever doing any hypnosis or reading a hypnosis book, just knowing that you have areas of your life sometimes you can't remember. You know what I mean? And when, and you know, we know that the mind works to protect you. So it done put that away somewhere. So a lot of times the question is, if my mind done put it away because it was too much for me to deal with, should I be going to look for it? You know what I mean? Like, what is that saying? You stare into the abyss long enough and stare back. You know, again, you know, for somebody like me, I'm an Aquarian. I want to know. And but I'm very mindful about how I go about unlocking information for myself, because again, if you already know that there are things that are going to be there, that are going to be something that's going to take some time to deal with, why just go cracking that open when you still trying to develop a steady nervous system? You know, it talked about the health and getting itself to this healthy state. That's important. You know, he talks about a woman who tripled her immune system. He talks about a man who was able to regulate his nervous system. You know, he used to have really bad anxieties. They found out a lot of the phobias, you know what I'm saying, claustrophobia, arachnophobia, all these different things come from, you know, anxiety, you know what I mean? And so if they can get to the root of the anxiety, the root of the issue, why is this person claustrophobic? What closed space or thing happened to make them feel like everything is closing in on them and they start to panic, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing for being in large crowds. I know that for me, one of the things that plagued me a lot when I was young was social anxiety. I would be fine being out and I would look fine on the outside, but on the inside I was shaking like a leaf, you know, and didn't know why. Didn't know why it was so hard for me to be around a lot of people. But then as I began to grow on my journey, and I'm always so grateful that my spiritual journey started so early, because it was important for me to understand my sensitivities, and not only my sensitivities, my gifts, you know, being able to pick up on other people's feelings and emotions, and you know, and knowing how to navigate that versus my own. What am I feeling of my own versus what am I feeling of somebody else's? And again, things like self-hypnosis can help the healers, people who are in the healing field, you know, whether it's quote unquote traditional or non-traditional medicine. What it does is it allows the person to be able to put a barrier around themselves, to protect themselves, to be able to do the work that it takes to work out in the world with people and their stuff, you know. It's just like a Reiki practitioner or a massage therapist, reflexologist. You are dealing with other people's energy, and you know, and being in other people's, you know, very conscious states of being, and it's sensitive, and your ethics and everything have to be in order, and you have to have a certain level of healing in yourself to be able to truly be beneficial, you know, to anyone.
Yep. Very
Yeah,
true.
this is like I said, this is, you know, I picked this up not intended. You know, I'll tell you, I done gave myself such a hefty reread list, man. Like, I pick up these books to go share them, and I'm like, damn, I remember why I got that book. Let me get back in that book again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You know you need it.
you know, look, I tell you like this. Didn't I bring this one? I brought this one,
Yep, you
and
did.
now I'm bringing this one. This again, this, you know, my journey has truly been about, and that's another Llewellyn book, by the way. You know,
Yes.
my book, my journey, and my books reflect the intentionality in me healing myself. That's what I can say about my book collection. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm dead ass about healing myself. Like, I mean, going in and getting down to the nitty gritty, the parts I want to see, the parts I don't want to see. Hell, I don't even know what I don't want to see. I don't even know what I want to see. It's just in there, you know what I mean? So, being on this path and being open and having the most tools available to be able to explore myself and explore my world helps. So, you know, you take something. Now, let's say, how do I use these two books together, right? So let's say I'm working on, we were talking about the nervous system. I'm working on my nervous system. So I decide that I'm going to heal with the color yellow. So I'm going to put on some yellow pajamas, maybe a yellow t-shirt or a yellow head bow or something, you know, a bracelet, something yellow, put a yellow stone under my pillow, what have you. I set my intentions on what healing I want. I create a voice recording talking about the healing I want to experience, reminding me of the color yellow. Remind me of seeing the color yellow, what the color yellow represents. Why again am I here? Why am I doing this work? What do I want to go in and root out? What do I want to go in and put in? And that's a full session. You do that while you're sleeping. You know, and somebody say, well, how do you know if it works? How do you know if it don't if you don't try it? You know, again, we let outside doctors in the world experiment on us, and we don't experiment on ourselves. We're afraid of ourselves. And you know, and even that is something to address in self-hypnosis, is not being afraid of your own power. And many of us were taught to be afraid of our own power, especially people that look like you and me. You know, we have a different level of power. We have access to different things. Just the melanin in our skin, you know, the richness of melanin in our skin gives us access to and information that other people are not privy to. I remember being in school and looking at all the lines on my hands. I have very wrinkly hands, you know. And I remember one of the other kids in my class, their hands were so smooth, like they didn't have wrinkles all up in here and everything. And I remember asking my science teacher about it. And they told me how much more rich my ancestry was, because locked between each one of these little lines is DNA that's connected to ancient times. And it's like, it's so much information locked in your body that it would take you lifetimes to know who you are. So, I mean, even that in itself, being told that at a young age, I knew that there was more to me than what I could see. I just didn't know how to get to it. And hypnosis, they, you know, very well may be one of those things that help to unlock that for someone who is seeking to know more about themselves. Like I said, I was desperately seeking myself, you know, and it was, I wasn't quitting until I found out, and that's why I'm still on this journey now, because I still don't know. I'm still unfolding. I'm still blooming. I'm still growing, and I love every bit of it. So, again, you want a good one, y'all? Hypnosis for Beginners. Mr. Hewitt, William Hewitt. Nick will link that information right down in the bottom, along with his offering from Brother Gandhi. And we and again, isn't that self-help work too? You know what I mean? Is being the change you want to see? Then he said,
yes,
that's one of his most famous. That's one of his most famous quotes: "Being the change you want to see." And you can only do that if you go in and do the work and you heal. You know, and you know, and make it so. So, and again, Nick, thank you for sharing your experience with hypnosis. You know, I haven't, like I said, I do have a friend who is a master hypnotist, and, you know, we talk a lot about the ethics of it and what he's been able to do for himself and for others, you know, and how many of his colleagues use the work as well. And so, it's interesting. It's interesting to know that people are walking around here and they're master hypnotists and you don't know it. So you ask yourself sometimes, is it some mass hypnosis going on? Because it talks about mass hypnosis, group hypnosis. It talks about hypnotizing children. It's a lot of ethical and deep conversations that need to be had about that, especially because we in a world and we are in a space to know that we have been indoctrinated and programmed and not for our own good. Knowing that and knowing that there's a way to go in and fix that, I mean, I think that's a recipe for spending some time together right there.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh, and I forgot to mention one of my favorite episodes of the original Scooby-Doo was that clown, that clown at the circus that was trying to hypnotize. Now that evil clown, he was using the hypnosis for evil, for wrong. Talking about when we talk about the morality of it. That clown was very evil. But
Very.
One of my favorite episodes. I have to
say. And I mean, I'll say this. I know a lot of us come from the no snitching space. I'm not here to debate that. That is what it is. What I will say is it took a lot of courage, especially way back when he blew the whistle on that psychiatrist, the psychologist. Oh, yeah. But can you imagine sending your loved one to a psychologist with a very real problem and they're being masterly manipulated through the healing that they are trusting in? That is a lot. That's just like some of the situations we've had where dentists has put people under anesthesia and been less than ethical, or same thing with surgeons and all these different things. It's like when you put your health, no matter what aspect of it, financial, emotional, physical, spiritual, whatever, you put your health in someone else's hands, that is the most vulnerable that you are. You know what I mean? You are so open, and one of the things it did mention in here is that the majority of his clients were female. Men don't want to remember, is what he basically was saying. He said men are like, hey, look, it happened. Apparently I got over it. Why am I going to revisit it? It's only going to get my way. And some women feel that way, but a lot of times more men feel that way. And I know that has a lot to do with the secret, suffering that goes on in the community of our men, young and old. And if I had, I can't say one wish because I got a bunch of them, but it would be my desire to see, as people are now accepting that men need a safe space to express themselves and young boys need to be able to be heard, and lots of things are happening in their world that we never thought about. I think it's important to remind people of some of these more holistic ancient techniques to be able to get to the root of your own problem. Because if you're not going to talk to nobody, that's fine, but don't lie to yourself. Don't keep telling yourself that you well and you're not, especially if it's some things that you can do in private. Nobody has to know that you're working on yourself with any of these things. You know what I mean? You just work on yourself. And what I can promise you is, even if every technique is not for you, because everything doesn't work for everybody, but what it will do is it'll give you an opportunity to slow down enough to know that, hey, this is something I'm interested in working on in myself. And I tried this way, and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, or maybe it led me to something else that did work. So we have to remain open. We have to remain honest with ourselves that the healing never stops.
Yep, very true. Very true. Ongoing.
That's what I got for y'all. That's what I got, y'all.
Yep. Bomb drop on that one. Drop the mic.
Drop the
but
book,
not the
right?
book.
Just drop the book. Drop the book.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I mean, I don't know about you, but man, both of those offerings, they may not have been as connected as some of our other ones, but they are. It really talks about, taking that look at self and determining what you want your world to be and what you're going to do to make a change in it. So I'm glad you shared what you did, and I'm definitely glad I picked this one back up off the show.
Yep, I'm glad you did too. Because it's one that I'm definitely adding to my list. Yeah, I gotta get my hands on that one.
You know what? And I want to just say, one of his other books that I do own, because that's what I was looking at that when you and I were in our back room space. I was looking at some of the other books in here that are recommended, that he wrote, and then some that are recommended in the back by Llewellyn. And I have to always laugh when I see these old ones, because I remember ordering my books this way. This is the way I used to order my books. It's from the back of other books. Wow. What a difference. But other books, but you hear that rain coming down? I love it. Oh, what a good day for UnRead.
Right.
But,
right.
One of the other books that he has here that I have taken a look at is Psychic Development for Beginners. I think that's a good companion to this one, because the Psychic Development one, what it does is it helps you to, I don't know if your teacher if any of your teachers ever use that term monkey brain. But when your brain when your mind be jumping all over the place and you're trying to focus on something, remember I was saying it takes discipline and focus to be able to do this kind of work. So in that studying your psychic development, that's one of the things that it helps to do, is it helps you develop your strength in your mind to be able to focus better and be able to get greater images. And even they use that psychic development book to talk about dreaming and lucid dreaming as well. Yeah. So that is it for me. I am really glad to share this book. And again, if anybody takes an opportunity to read this, if you have read it, if you used it, share with us. Tell us about it. Have you had any hypnosis experiences? We love to hear about it. You heard Nick's. Like I said, I got some stories to tell, boy. But we'll be here for a minute if I tell them all today.
Right.
So that's it for me, Nick. What about you? If you're done, I'm done. Yeah. And our next one is a surprise me. So woo, I'm gonna have to come hard for one. I gotta come hard out of left field with one book for you this summer. So maybe it'll be their next one. I don't know.
Maybe. But the next time we meet, we'll be in August. We'll be into Leo season. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know what? That's why I'm thinking of a really good book. Cause I mean, again, Leo season is show out season. You know what I'm saying? They be showing out. It's the sun. It's the sun. The sun is literally shining. And the lion is roaring, so I'm loving it. Mm-hmm. I'm excited. Mm-hmm. So why don't you remind us about your book, Nick, and I'll remind them about mine, and we can get on out of here and enjoy this rain.
Yeah. So mine was The Wisdom of Gandhi, from the Philosophical Library, compiled by Trudy S. Settel. Oh, well, this is what this version looks like. Yeah. Yeah, so that was mine for this episode.
Yeah, mine for this episode. Awesome. All right, y'all. Look at that. Well, again, this has been Unread episode 47. We are so excited to be bringing them to you. We gonna keep coming bringing these books, y'all. Y'all see Nick's bookshelf back there, and mine is over there hitting away right now. You know what I'm saying? With a bunch of stuff in front of it. And brand new books in the front.
Mm-hmm.
So we ain't gonna stop bringing them to you, y'all. But we thank you for joining us today for this episode. We pray that you have enjoyed these books, that you'll be talking about these. Please make sure you drop some stuff in the comments. Let us know what's going on. Let us know what you reading. You know, tell us what you want to see us bring off of these shelves. We'll dust them off and bring them to you. But if this is your first time, I hope you come back. If it wasn't, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, because we definitely going to have something for you. I am your sister Roo, as my brother Nick, and this has been the UnRead Book Review. Peace to you. Peace.